I am in Petrified Forest National Park near Holbrook, Arizona, and in this video we're going to be seeing some of the actual petrified forest, more specifically the rainbow forest, and the first stop we're going to make is here at the Rainbow Forest Museum. The Rainbow Forest Museum and the adjoining structures are among the oldest in the park, as they were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps during the 1930s. The museum was completed and opened in 1931. The Rainbow Forest Complex here used to have the park headquarters until they were moved to the Painted Desert Community Complex in the 60s. Now let's head into the museum, which is thankfully open despite the pandemic. A Phytosaur skeleton hangs above the entrance to this historic national park museum. The Phytosaur was a common prehistoric beast here in the Petrified Forest during the late Triassic period. It was a top aquatic predator, similar to but generally a lot larger than modern crocodiles. Below it is a Phytosaur skull from a specimen discovered near Chinle, Arizona in 1927. It is 4 feet long, one of the largest ever discovered. Here's a classic box diorama featuring phytosaurs, made at UC Berkeley in 1936 by Dr. Charles Camp's team and some Civilian Conservation Corps men. A short while before they made it, a phytosaur skull had been discovered with phytosaur bite marks on it, so based on that new evidence, they depicted 2 phytosaurs battling to the death in their diorama. This is a finely polished piece of petrified wood, and this was displayed in the original Rainbow Forest Museum back in 1925. In the 20s, there were very few lapidary shops in the world that could cut and polish a chunk of petrified wood this size. It took 3 days to cut and 3 weeks to polish, but that is one beautiful specimen. This polished petrified log slice was donated in 1950 by the American Geographical Society. It took 10 hours to cut in Barre, Vermont, a town famous for cutting granite. Looks like this section of the museum is currently closed. This exhibit is about how these trees, primarily conifers like pines, cypress, and cedars, became petrified. And there is an exhibit about dinosaurs. There were dinosaurs here at the Petrified Forest, and beginning in the Triassic period, dinosaurs dominated the landscape. I will admit that there were no T-Rexes or any other major dinosaurs here. The early dinosaurs that once roamed around here were of the smaller variety. Many of these strange prehistoric beasts may look like dinosaurs, but this sign tells why the Coelophysis and the Postosuchus were not dinos. Aetosaurs were the tanks of the Triassic period. They had tons of armor plates and some had large spikes on their backs and sides, but they were primarily vegetarians. Here are some more bones of phytosaurs. They would pretty much eat any fish or animal who dared to pass a little too close to their riverside territories. There's some fossils of a Revoltosaurus, who were initially thought to be dinosaurs, but they were not. Just another giant lizard that did not fit the criteria. There were also dinosaur imposters. They may have had a dinosaur-like appearance based on their posture and tucked legs, but they were more crocodilian. There's a Metaposaur skull. They ruled the river bottoms by sinking into the mud, then ambushing their prey with that giant mouth. Alright, here are some more skeletons of the extinct creatures of Petrified Forest. This is a Pleucerius hesternus, a large plant-eating reptile with some mammalian qualities. This is a Rauisuchids, one of the top land predators of the late Triassic period due to its powerful jaw. While it does look like a tiny T-Rex, it was not and was actually more related to crocodiles than dinosaurs. Here is a full Aetosaurus skeleton. Like I said, he was the tank of the Triassic period, and you can see some spikes on him. And that guy on his back is a Dimorphodon from the early Jurassic period. It's here because it was very similar to a species of pterosaur that was discovered here at the Petrified Forest in 2011. So technically I don't think the Dimorphodon was here. You can see their wings were comprised of one long finger and a flap of skin. That is fascinating. Here's a dinosaur fossil largely left in the rocks as it was discovered. It takes lots of very intricate work to dig fossils out of rock for full exposure and display. I very much respect paleontologists. Alright, that was a great museum. National park exhibits can be lackluster sometimes, so I'm quite happy with that. Directly behind the Rainbow Forest Museum is the Rainbow Forest itself. And from here we can take the meandering giant logs trail around to see some petrified wood. Here is the Stephen T. Mather plaque. Just about every national park has one of these to memorialize the first National Park Service director. Mather was invaluable to the preservation of many important natural and historic sites we enjoy today. There is a rainbow visible from the Rainbow Forest. What a welcome and very fitting surprise. So there is a lot of petrified logs and stumps scattered around this place. When this region was part of the Pangaean supercontinent about 223 million years ago, it was located just a few degrees north of the equator, about where Panama is located today. So this was a thick and wet subtropical forest, home to flocking tiny dinosaurs and gargantuan crocodilians like the Phytosaurs. Most of these trees were once very tall, but in time they died and fell, and over a much longer time span, they were buried by floods of sediment by the river systems. Notice that there's no bark or branches on any of these logs. It is believed that the logs were uprooted and moved a great distance from where they originally stood by the floods. And bark and branches wouldn't have survived all that before becoming fossilized. These logs became fossilized and give off a rainbow-like color scheme due to the quartz being trapped in the logs and stumps under the sediments, which caused them to become petrified. You can see that the quartz, along with a mixture of some iron and manganese, give off some brilliant color. These would probably look even brighter on a sunny day. Now I'm going to take a trail through a different part of the Rainbow Forest to see the world-famous Agate House, a historic Pueblo built out of petrified wood. It's about a mile to get there, so enjoy the petrified Rainbow Forest on the way there. If you look closely on the cut sections of these stumps, you may notice the concentric banding in the wood. They are growth interruption bands caused by the fluctuating ancient environment. It would be wet, then dry, then wet again, so they are not annual tree rings. You can't tell how old the tree lived to be with the banding. There's a bunny among the petrified stumps. Though the climate has drastically changed since the Triassic tropical forest days, walking among these petrified logs is truly like walking back in time. It is an incredible experience. We're closing in on the Agate House. You can see it up on the hilltop. This is going to be interesting. The Agate House standing here today is a reproduction Puebloan dwelling that was made up of the abundant construction material around. Petrified wood. It was originally built as an 8-room Pueblo around 900 to 1050 CE, and was occupied until about 1200. So an ancestral Puebloan family lived in a petrified wood house on this hilltop. Archaeologists do believe that only one family built the Pueblo and lived in it year-round due to its size and the effort it would take to maintain a petrified wood Pueblo complex. This is definitely one of the more unique Puebloan sites I have seen. So this is not the full size of the original Agate Pueblo, but it is a partial reconstruction on the site built by the Civilian Conservation Corps between 1933 and 1934. It is built on the site and out of the original materials. However, it may not exactly be a highly accurate reconstruction of the Pueblo, but it still gives the picture, and it's really awesome. It is a historic petrified wood Pueblo people originally built and lived at 1,000 years ago. Just look at the petrified wood masonry on this structure. That is fascinating. We can look inside the petrified wood room. There's a Puebloan ladder up to the roof. And here's the expansive view from the Agate House. There is yet another rainbow in the rainbow forest. Alright, this is really spectacular. I would highly recommend making the hike out to see the Agate House if you visit. Since I have not seen a satisfactory amount of petrified wood yet, I'm gonna hit the road, drive a little north to see more petrified wood. right, this is the Crystal Forest Trail, an entirely different petrified forest to explore with a mile-long trail. That sign states that there is no disturbing or collecting petrified wood here, and I do agree with that. Please do not mess with the petrified forest or remove stumps. There was a lot of damage done in the early days of tourism here dating back to the 1880s by visitors taking relics and removing stumps. So there actually used to be a lot more petrified wood here, but so much has been taken over the years. However, it looks like there are still lots of remains of formerly 200-foot tall conifers along this trail. The petrified wood here has an unusually high concentration of crystals within the fossils, so look closely. There may be lots of quartz and amethyst on these logs. The petrified wood along this trail is fantastic, also a must-do hike. Now moving on to see a couple more pull-offs. This is the Jasper Forest overlook. That down there is one of the largest accumulations of petrified wood in the world. It was the first location of the Petrified Forest National Monument open to railroad tourists in the early 1900s. So those visitors would hike 6 miles from the nearest railroad station at the time to experience this otherworldly petrified forest. Unfortunately, visitors today cannot walk down there. This is an original contact station and shelter built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the early 1930s. It has been restored recently. Behind it is the Agate Bridge, a 110-foot long petrified log that originally sat on the ground, but over time the floodwaters eroded the gully beneath it to effectively turn it into an agate bridge. In 1911, due to concerns that it would collapse, they put a concrete bridge underneath it for support. So really it's a petrified log on a concrete bridge, but that is still a really cool petrified forest landmark. So that was the Rainbow Forest, Agate House, and the Crystal Forest of Petrified Forest National Park, which does live up to its title as it clearly is a true petrified forest. That was not all the park has to offer though, as there is an incredible hike at Blue Mesa with petrified wood. There is the Painted Desert section of the park with Route 66 history and other historic structures, and the Pueblo and petroglyphs. I have 3 separate videos on those locations, so make sure to also watch those. There are links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and share it, and also subscribe to my channel. I have tons of videos on nearby Holbrook and its petrified wood shops, along with other national parks, roadside attractions, museums, and more interesting sites all across the country. Thanks for watching.